Welcome to the Schellman lightning round, where the objective is to talk about something new, hot, emerging in the world of audit and compliance in 3 minutes or less. And I figured as our director and leader of healthcare services at Schellman, you'd be the right person to talk about the topic today, which are the proposed changes to the HIPAA Security Rule. And I think much like ISO 42001 at the end of 2023, this was released right around Christmas. So I think it might have fallen off the radar of a lot of folks. So let's jump into it with question number one. Can you talk through what these changes are at a high level in the overall theme?
Sure. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting to think about HIPAA coming out in 1996. And if you think back to what the technology was like back then, I mean, we're no longer in the dial-up age, right? The problem is that outside of a 2013 omnibus rule that came out, which really just said, hey, business associates also need to do these things, it really hasn't gotten a makeover or a facelift, if you will. So, we're talking about technology changes that have been so massive, and yet the requirements for it are actually fairly archaic. Now, the healthcare system as a whole, you have rural hospital systems, right, that probably are still on old dial-up, technology, and there's certain things out there, right, that technologically are probably considered less advanced. But it doesn't mean that that patient information doesn't need to meet some sort of minimum. And I think that minimum really has to be upgraded at this point. And so what you're seeing here, especially after Change Healthcare, I think you're just seeing a response of people realizing, oh, shoot, healthcare is the number one target for ransomware attacks. And hey, I think maybe the HIPAA security rule from 96 isn't going to cut it in terms of what needs to be done. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing happening here is finally some catch up here to what the modern technology, age is like.
1996 was a long time ago. I think I was 9 years old. Can you talk about some of the overall themes to some of these changes that folks should be aware of?
Yeah. So, if you're somewhat familiar with the HIPAA space prior to this, right, I think one of the big things is definitely the change from addressable, meaning that you could kind of have different approaches to certain requirements, to required, meaning like there's not any other way of doing it. So some of these big things we're seeing are things like encryption at rest. That's no longer something that you can address in a separate way. You need to have encryption at rest. I would say another big area, if I had to break it down, it's sort of like 6 quick ones, if you will. I'll go with disaster recovery / response. And related to that, the security of your backups. I think that one of the big things that made it hard to come back quicker for some of these organizations that have seen breaches is that they don't have access to the backup information either, because once the hackers are in, they actually will go in and gain access to that backup, and then they don't have access to it. So there's definitely going to be a focus on how you are responding to disasters and how you're making sure that you have a security in place to respond appropriately during those disasters. Number 2, I'll go with the requirement for technology inventories. It's like an asset inventory and a flow of data. So like a network mapping that's going to show how is that ePHI flowing through all of your systems. Third one, network segmentation. Once again, increasing security through the segmentation of your network. Fourth, multi-factor authentication. A lot of people are aware of it, but just really it being required is a big deal for some organizations. Fifth, vulnerability scans need to be happening every 6 months. Penetration tests every 12 months. And so, and then the last one is the show your work, I call it. So you're going to have a compliance audit every 12 months that shows that you are, in fact, meeting these security requirements. So at a high level, those are the ones that kind of really stick out to me as sort of what's going to be impacting to the organizations.
I like it. And just as far as timelines, when do folks need to start preparing for this? When are these changes going to go live?
Yeah, great question. So we're in the 60-day comment period that just started on the 6th of January. It's going to go through March 7th. Once those comments are in for the public comments are received, they're going to be compiled by HHS. They'll go through, make updates. So while I think we're looking at probably around, let's say, 18 months before people need to be showing the work that I was just talking about, doing that compliance audit, I think that it's really important for organizations to be keeping their, ear to the ground and kind of keeping, track, and we'll put out more content, obviously, as stuff moves forward. But I think that, organizations should really start looking at these changes, because there's already been multiple over the past 2 years coming from the Biden-Harris administration, like their National Cybersecurity Strategy, things like the HISA, the Security and Accountability Act that was put out there by 2 senators in late 2024. It's not going away, I guess is what I'm saying. And the meat of these changes I don't see going away or changing all
Right.
that much. I think there'll be limitations and things like that. But I think that if you're an organization, you should be starting to get ready now. So looking to do things like gap assessments or readiness assessments, doing things like that asset inventory and the mapping of your network and the ePHI flow. If you don't have a good feel on that already, definitely something I would start
Sure.
with.
Very good. Ding, ding. That's 3 minutes. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Folks can reach out to you directly with more information. And as you alluded to, we'll have more content to come. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ryan.